France is in riots right now. People are pissed off, and they should be pissed off. I'm hoping that you're paying attention to this because just as of late, Macaroni, I don't want to call him Macron, but Macaroni has passed a law that makes it illegal for any citizen to film and record law enforcement in France. And so you've seen in Western media people talking about these are COVID riots. These aren't COVID riots. These are riots for fundamental human rights. Against the law for you and I to film law enforcement in France. That is fucking insane. That is insane. Think about that for a moment. What does this allow? Well, this allows for the worst form of corruption. This allows for the worst form of censorship. This allows pretty much the state government to do what they want without any repercussions. Now, there's one maxim in history, and that maxim in history is if we look at every empire and if we look at every nation, no matter when and where, how, that particular governing body has turned their backs on the very citizens they proclaim to protect. Remember, the government are human beings. We have biases, we have prejudice, we have evolutionary psychology that we have to look at. And it's always I find it funny when people want more government as opposed to less. How does more bureaucrats fix anything? How does more control fix anything? It doesn't. When these people talk about more government, you have two camps of people. You have one camp of people which benefit from this action. I always say, look at the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. So you have one group of people who want more government. And I always say, why? Well, they're either mega corporation, they're politicians. They have 99.99% of the time, they have a financial benefit from having a greater government, a bigger government, more bureaucrats, more regulations, more policy, more censorship, etc. They benefit monetarily in some way. Then we have a second group of people, I like to call them useful fucking idiots, who are champagne socialists, who've never, ever spent a single fucking day in their life under real socialism, under real dictatorship, under real regimes that will put a boot up your fucking ass. They haven't. They're over here, oh, we need socialism, and half of them are trust fund babies that never worked a fucking day in their life, that don't know shit, yet they're fucking screaming down with capitalism, let's go socialism. I'm going to ship their ass to China right now, where we have real concentration camps, and they don't talk about this. No. Let's talk about shit over here, but let's not talk about the 2 million Uyghurs in China. Let's not talk about the shit happening in Eastern Europe right now. You know, let's not talk about the shit happening in Africa. No. Well, or even Iran. Like, where's the feminists for Iran over here? Where's the feminists from Saudi Arabia? No. Let's talk about over here. Champagne fucking socialists. They're the useful idiots. They're gonna have a boot shoved up their ass after their usefulness is done. But that group, I understand. I understand how they're swayed and manipulated. They're just dumb. Just plain and simple. There's no other way to look at it. It's just fucking stupid. The first group is the nefarious group. The first group is intelligent, highly intelligent, playing a high-level Machiavellian game. And I find it interesting where we now have a third group of people. We have people who understand what they're doing. They're the puppet masters, controlling everything. We have the second useful idiots, the champagne socialists. Then we have the third group of people, I call it the bell curve, the general populace, which at the end of the day, if you look at the general populace, they're quiet. And if we go out and we knock on the door, or we knock on every door, you know, I'm here in my neighborhood. If I knock on every single door, and let's say I knock on 100 doors, out of 100, I guarantee you 90% of people want to be left alone. They want less taxes. They want more freedoms. And they just want to live their life. That's a general populace. They're not reading on a day-to-day basis of what's happening with politics. They're not in any of these champagne socialist circles. They just want to be left alone. And so what's happening in France today is draconian by all standards. And don't get it twisted for a second that this ain't possible here, whether it's Canada, US, or other nations. There's a saying, once Pandora's box opens, ideas spread. And when governments are over here like, oh, that's interesting, you know, we've realized freedom of speech, because this is a freedom of speech. It is speech to me is any form of communication, whether that is digital communication, whether that is video communication, photography communication, cryptography communication. It is using a medium to communicate from one individual to another. And now in France, they made it illegal, a draconian measure for having checks and balances against the government. Because what is the government? Government is us voting in people. And it's always our fault because we just have a very uneducated populace and people don't really know what's going on. As I mentioned in the bell curve, they just don't know. It's a populist game. Hey, I like this guy because he looks like me and he says a few talking points. Yay, I'm going to vote for this, whoever this person is. And that's how politics is. Politics has never been about policy. Politics have never been about how this MP or how this senator or how this president or prime minister is going to really change. No, it's always been about the base root emotional response to human beings. Human beings are very predictable when it comes to the emotional reflection they have with their candidates. It's never been about logic, ever. I just always state, go read René Girard, go read Carl Jung, go read any basic human psychology, understand evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology with tribalism mix. You'll realize, well, we're not logical. We're very predictable when it comes to how we behave emotionally. But I want to get back to France, and it's really important that you pay attention to this because this can spill over to where you live. And so luckily enough, France is it's getting lit. People are fucking pissed, and they should be fucking pissed. The more we allow our governments to grow, vis-a-vis more bureaucrats, vis-a-vis more regulation, vis-a-vis more amendments, the greater freedoms you lose, the greater censorship it becomes. And it really does eventually become, as George Orwell said in 1984, where we have to be careful of what we say, we have to be careful of what we do, we have to be careful of who we hang around with, because Big Brother's always watching. And it's not like Big Brother is always watching in this nefarious 1984 type of method. We've literally allowed, through our own consensus, for them to do this. And so I'm going to be paying attention to what's happening with the feedback in France. I'm very interested to see how Mr. Macaroni responds to this. And I really do hope people in North America start realizing, even in like Europe, like whether it's Germany, whether it's neighboring England. And England's a little bit different. You know, they had the Brexit and people are fed up with this globalization, with European Union. And don't get me started with the European Union. The European Union, from a financial perspective, is the worst ever thing that can happen to Europe. Worst ever. Now, the European Union as a union, I wouldn't say is the worst. I would say how they approached it is very mafia-like, and in that aspect is worse. Is the absolutely worst. They could have easily done just trade negotiations and created a very simple free trade agreement, as opposed to creating this draconian fucking one league that dictates how you should do your economy. I was in Italy 3 years ago for my honeymoon. And one of the things I like to do when I travel is I like to talk to small business owners everywhere I go to gauge the real economy. Not what you see on TV, but the real economy. And I was talking to this one restaurant owner, and we started talking, and they started in Italy. I don't know if you're familiar. They fucking hate the European Union. The European Union destroyed Italy, destroyed the lira, destroyed the dollar. This is happening currently in Croatia as well. I'm opposed to any of these stupid unions. So basically, get this. So the European Union started dictating that in southern Italy, they couldn't use wood stoves because it's not carbon friendly. Yeah, think about that. Southern Italy districts had to go fight them in court in Brussels for a very long time, spending money saying, yo, what the fuck are you talking about? We're using wood stoves. We've been using wood stoves for the last 1,000 years to make pizza, bread, etc. You're not telling me I can't use a stove because of environment? Get the fuck out. I'm just showing a small example of how draconian these fucking organizations are. Who the fuck are you to tell me you can't use a wood stove? And now it's spilling over into worse things. We're like, you can't even fucking film us what we're going to do to you. We're going to come and beat you up. No, you can't film us. We're going to have a goon squad come out there all dressed in black, full riot gear. They're unmarked, and we're going to come beat up our own citizens. Think about it. They're beating up their own citizens in their country. That's insanity. This is why I'm always kind of optimistic with Americans in their Constitution. It is your fundamental right to protect yourself. And I go beyond the Constitution. It's a God-given sovereign right of every human being to protect themselves and their family. We can revert back to tribalism before nation states were ever created. And we can look at how the animal kingdom behaves. If we look at chimpanzees have weapons. They use rocks. They use sticks. And better, don't get it twisted. If you and I, as a neighboring chimp tribe, goes into the next chimp tribe, shit's going to hit the fan. Why are we territorial? Well, we need to protect our resources. We need to protect our women. We need to protect our food. And so it is a sovereign right of every living sentient being on this planet to have the ability to protect one's own family. Period. And so even if you take this constitutional right away in America, the actual zeitgeist of people having, people first having the physical access to weapons, and second of all, having the zeitgeist of, this is my God-given right, makes me quite optimistic and happy for that. Other nations kind of have that. Canada, not so much. We're kind of whatever. But I still think there's a small amount of people in Canada that will fight to the very end for their freedoms. And we have that in our history too, with World War I, World War II. You know, we have strong-minded people here. But please keep an eye on what's happening in France. Like, this is no joke, guys. Really, really no joke. And my heart goes out to the people in France fighting this. I wish them all the best when it comes to this. And like I said, guys, throughout history, I'll leave you with this. Throughout history, the governments have always turned on their people. Always.